Hello and welcome. This is Live Unstuck Coaching Moment, and today we're going to talk about the 3 A's that go in the word change, or as I like to call it, the 14 golden rules of successful change. In reality, the word change has 1 A, but I like to think of the 3 A's that go into that word, because there's 3 words that sort of fit with those A's that allow us to be able to be more successful when it comes to change. So the first one has to do with awareness. If we're not aware of the need to change, if we're not aware of the possibilities associated with change, it doesn't happen. Things just aren't in our frame of reference at all. The second one is attitude. If our awareness shifts, our attitude has the opportunity to change as well. Change can be positive. It is something that is possible that way. And then what happens is our attitude shapes then our actions. So the 14 different golden rules that go into that. First, as it relates to attitude, the more urgent we are when it comes to change, the better chance we have of moving forward. Now, don't get that confused with Stephen Covey's urgency and importance matrix. What I'm looking for here is there impetus, is there power, is there urgency to change? Because if there isn't any, complacency is a very difficult thing to get over. So first we need to have some urgency. Secondly, what happens in our lives is we build up this whole list of things that we believe. They become biases in some cases, and for many of us, our biases or our beliefs we think are facts. And in reality, if we stand back from them, almost like taking them off like a pair of sunglasses and look through them, we can see that our biases really aren't facts, they're just things that we believe. So that's an awareness shift, is that if we're willing to be able to look differently at our biases and say they aren't facts, they're just simply things we believe, that'll get us moving in the right direction. Third, and I've talked about this a lot before, is change really is a grieving process. It evokes grief. In other words, it's a series of endings followed by new beginnings, and as we move from one to the other, we don't just simply go straight across. We kind of go through the death and grief cycle a bit before we start testing, we start tolerance, acceptance, agreement related to the change. So we need to be aware of that. That change is a grieving process. We need to let that happen. Fourth, change, especially from an organizational viewpoint. People think they can change the organization. Well, in reality, we change individuals one at a time, and then they change the organization. So change happens one person at a time, not organizationally. We have to keep that in mind. And then finally, the last thing about awareness is real, enduring, long-term change is a team sport where participation is encouraged. People don't resist change, they resist being changed without their permission. So an awareness of the fact that we need to have participation in change is important. So those 5 things, those first 5 golden rules as it relates to change, they fit with awareness. The next group has to do with attitude. We can get cynical about change because often change efforts tend to fail, or people don't see it all the way through. So many of us have a bias that change is negative, and we have that bias right from the beginning. Well, let's change our attitude and say change can be positive. It is possible. That is in the realm of possibilities. Next, change can't happen through you unless it's happening to you. In other words, do as I'm doing, not as I'm saying. In other words, this whole thing has to do with modeling the behavior you expect from others. You can't simply expect them to change, and you're not changing yourself. Third, flexibility, adaptation to things, being able to look at your new circumstances and adapt quickly. That's an attitude that's mandatory for successful change. Even when you start moving forward with a change, it's likely that you're going to shift, you're going to adapt, you're going to need to be flexible and make some changes to your change effort as you go along. If you lock yourself in, if you become myopic about things, what will happen is that you will lose your ability to be successful. Next, it's rare that change happens instantly. It does happen sometimes, but in reality, most change efforts tend to be more long-term in nature. So be patient. Allow the process, from your attitude perspective, allow the process to unfold. Don't expect things to happen just because you put together a webinar, just because you sent out an email. It doesn't work that way. We need to be able to take a long-term perspective. That's another golden rule. And then the last one, as it relates to attitude, is this. You can approach things from two different energetic perspectives, low energy or high energy. And low energy is threats and coercion and shaming and yelling and all that kind of stuff. You can get change to occur, but it usually doesn't last very long and people don't buy into it. My viewpoint here is that high energy, positive energy wins. It always is the right thing to do. So tap into people's sense of wonder and curiosity, and tap into their passion and their joy and their thirst for knowledge and those kinds of things. And what happens then is you create a completely different set of energy that comes into the change process. So all of these things then track into or lead to how we shift our actions, changes in our actions, and ultimately that's where change occurs. So first, we need to be able to have the courage to decide to change. Up until that point, it's still an academic theoretical exercise. We need to make a decision. And the word decide does not mean keep all of your options open. It says put all other options aside. So decide. Next, after you've made the decision and you have all the things out there you want to do, make sure you put together a relevant plan. Relevant to me is the key word. It's detailed enough to be able to be specific, but not so detailed that it becomes just simply a prescription that you follow one step after the other. It's comprehensive in its nature in that it touches many things, but it doesn't go too far. It's relevant to the situation, it's relevant to your organization or to your own individual life. And then the next one is to commit resources, time, money, people, whatever it might be. Until you commit resources, and I don't mean we're going to line them up and hope to use them, we're going to see if we can find them. I mean commit them. Until you commit the time, commit the energy, commit the money and people, it's still an academic exercise, so commit. And then finally, the last golden rule of successful change, the last A, if you will, having to do with actions, is this process of being accountable. You've set things in motion, you've made decisions, you are part of the process, people are included in it, you're using high energy. All of these things you're using, make sure you are accountable to what's going on from your own viewpoint, and if you're in a leadership position, make sure you're modeling accountable behavior. It's not fair to stand back at the end and point fingers at somebody else when things aren't going right. Be accountable for where things are. So, the 14 golden rules of successful change, or the 3 A's in the word change, if change was spelled with 3 A's. First, we need to expand our awareness. Next, we need to shift our attitude. And then finally, all of that shapes the correct, proper, and effective actions we need to take to be able to move forward. So, that's our Live Unstuck coaching moment for today. Thanks for stopping by.